Hey everybody, this series has been a long time coming. I'm real proud of the final product. There's a ton of behind the scenes footage over on Patreon that'll never see the light of YouTube. Go over there and check it out. And I just really appreciate all the support. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, if you could please like, comment, and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And thank you to all my patrons out there on Patreon for sponsoring this entire series. All right, so what my goal was to go down to Mexico is I wanted to kind of pick up on what a lot of the media has not been covering. And so I brought down a camera guy and we met with Ed Calderon, and some of the topics that we wanted to cover was the border, the immigration, migrant camps, some cartel stuff, and then anything else that we had time to cover. Not everything went as planned. We had all this camera equipment with us. Come to find out, when we got down there, we couldn't bring any of the camera equipment anywhere that we went. Otherwise, we would have stuck out like a sore thumb. We were in some extremely dangerous places. And so please bear with us with the camera. We filmed everything on an iPhone, and a lot of times the iPhone had to actually be inside of Tim, the camera guy's shirt, to get the coverage that we actually were able to produce. I'm going to leave my opinions out until the very end. To be honest with you, I didn't want to put any opinion at all in this. I wanted to just be strictly raw footage. There's no agenda here at all. I'll give you my opinion at the end, but I just want you guys to see this for what it is. And if you don't want to hear my opinion, then you can cut this when the film ends. What we were doing for this specific video is there is a migrant camp on the Tijuana border, right where there's a walking bridge that goes from Tijuana into the United States. Well, there's a Mexican migrant camp, maybe 800 to 1,000 people we estimated. And what we wanted to do is get in there, interview some migrants, talk about what's going on, what their journey was like getting up to the border, how long they've been there, what's going on inside of the migrant camp, and any other information that they could volunteer to us. So, some of the equipment that we had, I kind of went over that already, but we actually, Ed was able to get 2 armed bodyguards for us in plain clothes, so we didn't stick out. We were in soft skin vehicles, meaning not up armored. They were just regular everyday vehicles, Toyota Corolla types, dirty. They blended in perfectly to the environment, so we didn't raise any flags immediately. And then, like I said, we brought all our camera equipment down with us. Unfortunately, we didn't use any of it in any part of this series. And so everything is done on an iPhone. So basically what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna walk you, the audience, through exactly what we were doing each and every day, starting with the migrant camp. Now, when we got down there, we had to kind of assess some of the danger, and it turns out there have been 2 or 3 different journalists that were killed. One of them was actually on the flight down, so that changed everything right off the bat as soon as we landed. So how we started with the migrant camp is day 1, we jumped in with Ed, his bodyguards, and one of his colleagues, along with my camera guy, Tim, and we basically did a quasi-surveillance mission around the migrant camp. What we were looking for is infill, exfil routes, how many routes in and out, where we can get in and out, the temperament of the actual migrants in the camp. Did they seem dangerous? Did they seem violent? Were they going to be welcoming? Were they not going to be welcoming? We were just kind of assessing what we thought the situation was going to be like, and we wanted to get a feel for the ground before we actually went into the migrant camp. So with all that being said, let's dive in. All right.
So we're gonna go from here to the migrant camp. Migrant camp's in El Centro.
So it's right out. The place is called Chaparral. It was a big federally owned lot. Basically, they started to expand the border crossing to make things easier for everybody. You know, pedestrian walks and pedestrian crossing, and that is exactly what the migrant encampment basically just decided to take ownership of. A lot of the border waits are actually longer now for people that actually work cross borders because of that. You know, that's why a lot of the locals are really not happy with that encampment there.
How long are those people in there before they eventually cross?
I mean, they're basically waiting there to have their turn to go. Some of them, and a lot of them are just there living it out, getting the free handouts, getting some of those donations coming in from California, getting some of the money that comes from just being in that area, living off people giving you money. And also there's a drug market inside of it, so it's like a whole little mini city.
Okay. And they're just coming from, these aren't just coming from Mexico, they're coming from everywhere, South America.
Yeah, they're West Africa, North Africa, Brazil, the Caribbean, Russian. They just caught like a large ring of Russian smugglers basically here in Baja. So it's a free-for-all. We're gonna walk around there. Most of what you're gonna see there specifically is gonna be Honduran, Guatemalan, and some Mexican nationals basically there, agglomerated. They are very skittish about cameras and people being kind of around. There's always leadership there. They don't allow people to go into the encampment.
Who's the leadership?
Leadership. I mean, it depends on the day. Usually, there's always somebody in charge of some of these groups, and it's always somebody with a lot of Che Guevara stuff on them, right?
Does it have anything to do with the government, or is it just? It's a city inside. It's a city.
It's a city inside of a city. That the cage is there for basically their protection, because the locals do not like it. The cops are there for their protection because the locals do not want it.
Who allows them to set up there?
It's basically a humanitarian pressure on the government to say, well, I know this is not the right place for them, but this is where they want to be. To basically, it's a form of protest.
Yeah.
They're there blocking one of the busiest border crossings on the planet, affecting the lives of thousands of people. And that's the way that's the way they're going to try and pressure the government to hear them out, help them out, and let them cross.
How many people do you think are in there?
I don't know. Last time we went there, this was probably 2 years ago. The estimate was anywhere between 800 to 1,000 people living there. The place has expanded since then. So,
is there a lot of crime inside of it?
Yeah, and unreported because what happens in there.
You're dealing with like the poorest of the poor.
Yeah,
probably a lot of parties that got
heroin, meth, and you name it. That's what's there. That's the drug of choice. And specifically, since they are on that little zone, they rob stuff from the outside and just hiding there and go out. Not all of them. There are a lot of good people in there that are desperate for a chance, but a lot of people are taking advantage of that space to do their own thing.
All right, so we're heading to the migrant camp right now. How far out do you think we are?
It's like 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes out. So we're just gonna roll around, look for a route in, make sure we're getting plenty of footage, and then we'll actually get out of the vehicle and maybe talk to some migrants, see what's going on. We're entering the migrant camp right now. So there's anywhere from 800 to 1,000 people living in here at any given moment.
Mira, párate por acá. Mira, cuando se puso el güey, mejor párate allá, porque no seas tan pinche llamativo para aquí, esta gente. Máralo vuelta. cuadro está. Ya todos ya nos están viendo, güey, que estamos grabando.
We can see down there from up on the bridge too.
Yep.
At this point in time, we were actually right outside the migrant camp. We had introduced ourselves to two different migrants, a boyfriend and girlfriend who had made a journey from Honduras. Ed and I both started getting extremely nervous. We were picking up some vibes that the migrants were starting to get a little agitated. And after speaking with the migrants, which we were actually getting ready to film them right there, they were also starting to get a little nervous as well, and saying that the migrants were getting ready to start throwing rocks, bottles, trash, and basically they were getting ready to riot because they noticed that we were filming there. So what we wound up doing is we wound up paying them off, and we brought them off-site to a small coffee shop just a couple minutes off the primary location, and brought them in there for a full interview. Now, with this being said, we had two armed guards with us. Like I said, they were in plain clothes, dressed very similar to how I'm dressed right now, and they were with four complete strangers. And so the reason I'm showing you that, or I'm telling you that, is I'm trying to paint the level of desperation that these people have to get into the United States. So got into two different vehicles with guys with guns and cameras, foreigners, and that takes a little courage. So for a very nominal amount of money. Anyways, let's roll the feed.
So the leadership here they're a bunch of vultures. They don't want any donations being done without them controlling who gets what. And they saw us talking to some of these people. They immediately asked what we were there doing, and they're like, "What are we going to get for it? Like, what can you get out of this?" So we're taking two of the people that were here, very humble people, decided to talk to us, and we're going to just take them to a secondary location so we don't get hounded. There were threats of rocks being thrown if we attempted to go in and kind of talk to people.
Where are the people from that we're talking to?
These are people from Central America. I think they're probably from Guatemala. I'm not too sure. We're going to sit down and talk to these people. They're very humble and struggling.
Okay.
Yeah, the fact that they just got into a stranger's car.
What do you think? If we want to help them out a little bit, and float them some money. What?
It's any. That's up to you. I said $25 to $40 or $50 would be, that would basically pay for their month.
Okay. Good to know.
¿Dónde vamos a ir, güey?
Acá.
So we're gonna go to a cafe. The only way we can get close to these people is if we identify ourselves as Christian. So we are a part of a Christian group, right?
That's the cover.
You're Christian, and I'm kind of Christian, Catholic.
All right.
So pagan Christian.
I'm Catholic too.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. We're okay.
And then Tim, the camera guy, just took the rosary off the rear view. So
that's
minus 3 brownie points.
Oh yeah, we'll figure it out.
Good job. Blew our cover already.
At this point in time, we're getting out of the vehicles. We took two separate vehicles. Ed and I rode together in one vehicle, and the migrants rode together in another vehicle with the bodyguards. We got out, we tried to get some privacy and actually do the interview outside of the coffee shop. However, the wind was just too windy. We couldn't get any audio out of that. So we actually went into the coffee shop and did the interview in there. Excuse the audio. We're doing the best with what we got. And the mask actually says, "Make American Made Again." It's not staged. That's the mask he had. Here we go with the interview.
So we'll start. Let's do it. ¿De dónde vienen? Platícanos de dónde vienen.
Vamos de la República Honduras.
Honduras. So they're saying that they're from the Republic of Honduras.
¿Cuánto tiempo tienen aquí?
3 years in Tijuana.
3 years.
Esperando.
Esperando respuesta de papeles también mexicanos.
¿Ustedes vinieron con la primera oleada? Did you come here with the first caravan? ¿Vinieron con la primera oleada de migrantes que llegó aquí a la caravana?
Sí, 2018.
En 2018 se vinieron.
Bueno,
Usted se vino después.
yo la conocí ella después. Yo
Yo
vine primero acá y
Acá encontraron el amor.
estaba trabajando en restaurantes y todo eso. Estuve trabajando en un restaurante, pero de hecho comenzó la pandemia, me quitaron mi trabajo.
He's saying that he came here first and then he met his wife here.
Okay.
Since they got here.
They've been working in restaurants.
That's all about, yeah,
What are they waiting for?
y qué les dijeron así como, hey, espérense para esto. ¿Qué les han dicho?
Venimos nosotros con ella, le digo, pues ya no tengo trabajo con el patrón, pues ya no tenía interés, vamos a ver dónde, pues no tenemos para pagar el apartamento, vamos a ir acercándonos a la línea del Chaparral a ver qué pasa, cómo está la situación, si están dando los permisos de entrada para poder, porque el asilo es allá de otro lado.
So they're saying that they're saying that they got work here, they can't afford the apartment here. So they're left without a choice except of living in the Chaparral, waiting for their turn to get asylum on the U.S. side. They're being promised asylum on the U.S. side.
Okay. Do they have any idea when that's going to happen?
¿Les dieron una idea de que si les llegan a otorgar el asilo?
Nosotros pues seguimos esperando aquí en el campamento.
¿Qué les dieron? O sea, ¿metieron papeles?
No, nos dieron un número de una organización que se llama Aplicación del Otro Lado.
So all they have is an application number.
That's it?
That's all they have, and that's basically they're waiting for their number to come. Están esperando que llegue el número.
Estamos esperando que los mandaron el otro día un mensaje que esperáramos el turno, pero eso de ahí nunca pasa, porque nos mandan otro mensaje donde dicen que las fronteras están cerradas y que sigamos esperando.
They're saying that basically they're just telling them to wait their turn, but then they get another message that the border's closed, and then they get another one that it is open again, and then it's closed again. Les decían que estaba cerrada cuando estaba Trump.
No, cuando estaba Trump, pues Trump dijo que no quería, cuando se estaba haciendo, yo escuché cuando se estaba haciendo el campamento acá, que la gente dijera la noticia de aquí de México que por favor se retiraran porque estaba entrando la pandemia de COVID. Dijo Donald Trump, no hay entrada para que ponga migrantes.
Yeah, Trump basically said there's no entrance for immigrants when the pandemic kind of like starting up.
Después dijo que Joe Biden iba a apoyar mucho al inmigrante.
And then Joe Biden came into office and said he was going to take care of them. That's the message that he provided. That's the message that they got, that Joe Biden was going to take care of them and open the border.
Y de hecho, pues, logramos a ver nosotros, le digo yo a ella, vamos a ver si logramos nosotros esa vida. Pues venimos, ya llevamos 7 meses, hemos visto que se han ido familias.
So he says that 7 months ago they got the word that creo que son los café con leche, ¿no? Hace 7 months ago they got the message that, you know, it's open season, doors are open, families are starting to get interned. So 7 months ago, hace 7 meses.
Y por eso seguimos esperando nosotros, porque como estamos viendo que están saliendo las ayudas, digamos, ya llegaron gente que están incapacitadas, ya nomás vamos a quedar nosotros, pues ya ahorita ya la tengo muy enferma.
Yes, he has his sick wife, and they've seen that others have already been interned. So he's just really waiting for his turn right now.
Okay. What was how did you find the coyote in Honduras to bring you all the way to Tijuana?
¿Qué tipo de proceso usaste para llegar desde Honduras hasta acá? ¿Te viniste con la caravana?
Pues caminando 2 meses para llegar a
2 months walking all the way here.
Y como dice la palabra mojado, porque no puede arreglar papeles, porque si se da cuenta usted, para poder cruzar en Honduras tiene que tener dinero para sacar un pasaporte, pero piden cuenta bancaria, piden que tengas propiedades, casa propia, y nosotros no tenemos nada.
So he's saying he's mojado 2 times over, like wet 2 times over. Okay. Because he's from he needs a bank account, property to have a passport to cross into Mexico, and he doesn't. Nobody has that.
Puro ride y días caminando. Bueno, tengo mucha historia. Yo me arrancaba los pedazos de carne de la planta del pie.
He said he would rip off the soles of it, like the bottoms of his feet from all the walking.
La caravana se usó de
¿Cuánto gente?
7,000.
7,000 strong.
7,000 personas en caravana.
Caravan.
Y recorríamos 60 kilómetros diarios.
60 kilometers daily.
Para poder, llegamos a la 1 de la mañana a un parquecito así de México y se podía buscar quién era el encargado del gobernador, el México, que lo tuviera un ratito para descansar en el parque y sacamos permiso.
So every time they would go to a town, they would ask the local government to say, "Can we sleep here?" And they would get, help from the locals when we take them out.
How was this organized at the beginning when they started?
Y cómo se enteró de que iban la organización. ¿A quién les dijo ustedes? ¿Sabes qué? Nos vamos a alargar mañana. Vamos a hacer una boda de 7,000 cabrones, nos vamos a ir a la frontera mañana.
No, allá en Honduras, cuando se estaba armando en la terminal, necesitamos para que no tenemos nada acá, estamos siendo amenazados por malas pandillas. En Honduras, la gente que está acá no es porque no tenga, como decir, pobreza y que comer en Honduras. No, el problema es que no puede vivir en su país. Hay muchas amenazas por malas pandillas.
Insecurity from all the gangs, Mara Salvatrucha, this is the Barrio 18, the 18th Street gang members. That's what pushed him to say, "Ya aquí no puedo. I can't live here anymore." And it's not about them not being able to find work or opportunities out there. It's completely unsafe. Están a la merced de las pandillas allá.
Are you talking unsafe in the camp or unsafe
like
on the journey up?
In his country. That's what prompted him to move up there. Ahora cuando dijeron, nos vamos a ir, ¿cómo repartieron la palabra para que se organicen 7,000 canijos de irse? ¿Por Facebook?
No, todo el mundo nos viene diciendo, salía pues en las noticias. Oye, este grupo que está viendo como que haciendo una organización de un grupo de caravanas. Y caravanas, no sabía que era caravana que es hacerse los grupos para que puedan entrar a México y al ver el grupo de la caravana, pues puedan México respetar a nosotros para que no lo hagan. Porque si uno viene solo, tiene los documentos no traen.
So they started promoting online that it's safer if everybody got together and went to the border as a group. So that it started off as a safety thing, and they got organized more as a group.
How many movements come up a year?
Como cuántas caravanas al año tú estás viendo que están subiendo, una o dos.
Pues ahorita ya casi ya no está porque ya México ya no está dejando
He says that not a lot of them now because Mexico's closing off the border.
Primera y segunda, tercera fueron las que cuando se empezaron a formar los que entraron. Había cuarta, quinta, sexta, octava, todas esas ya no. Vinieron, pero las
he says the first, second, and third wave got people through.
Okay.
And that the subsequent ones have been met with basically.
And he's saying it's más seguro aquí en Tijuana en Camp que en Honduras.
Estamos en un lugar ya en la frontera más grande del mundo y me siento muy orgulloso porque sí me siento aquí y sí estoy más seguro.
He says he feels proud to be here because he feels more secure here, which is interesting.
Me siento muy lejos ya de mi país.
He feels far away from his country, and he's right at just one step to be in San Diego. He feels right at that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have any papers to enter, so. President Lopez Obrador.
Would you go in without papers?
President Lopez Obrador has helped him out a lot. He said he gave him a permit to all of the migrant caravan members to stay and work.
Okay.
Pardon the interruption. We had to cut a 3-minute segment out of the YouTube version of this due to a copyright claim from the song in the background at the coffee shop. Basically what you missed is we asked them how much it costs per person to get in the caravan. That cost is $5,000. Then I asked them where do they want to go in the United States if and when they get in. They said they don't care where they go just as long as they get work. Let's get back to it.
Yo fui migrante también, pero sí me lamenté la malagueña.
No, es que hay personas que sí le pagan.
No todos tenemos la misma suerte.
Yo sé que no, yo sé que no.
We gotta wrap it up here pretty quick. Where do you guys want to go when you do get in the U.S.?
¿A dónde quieren ustedes, si llegan allí a los Estados Unidos, a dónde quieren hacer?
Queremos ir a cualquier parte de Estados Unidos, todos, si nos lleváramos por lo menos a ir a un estado.
All they want is somebody to receive them.
Lo que queremos
Somebody
es trabajar. Lo que queremos es trabajar.
All they want is just to work, so they don't care where in the United States.
Will you send your money home?
¿Y van a mandar ustedes dinero de vuelta a su familia?
Ayudar a la familia.
De hecho, yo tengo mis hijos.
Es el propósito.
¿Tiene 3 hijos? So she has 3 kids and they're still down
Quiero
there.
ayudarlos,
And she wants to send money
ayudarles
down
para que
there.
puedan hacer una casita, un
They can
cuartito
build a
para
house
vivir.
or a business down there.
Okay.
A veces esas son las cosas de uno, pues.
Those are-
Pero ya en el caso mío ya fue muy delicado porque yo la verdad las cosas he perdido mucha familia en mi país.
He's lost lots of family members in this country, so it's unsustainable for him.
Y a mi vida,
When you get
mi
to
vida
the
corre
U.S.,
peligro.
will you ever return to Honduras?
Cuando llegan a Estados Unidos, ¿ustedes van a regresar a Honduras algún día o no?
Pues para mí creo que sería un poco más difícil.
Dios sabrá.
Pero
Like he
no,
says that for him it's going to be difficult because of the threats he has, but like she would want it. So
porque que esté uno, que Dios le regale
Poder trabajar y lograr hacer algo, una meta pues que tenemos.
Eso es lo que uno puede hacer.
she says that all she wants is to be able to work to help out her family back in Honduras and to basically build a better life that she can have.
Well, I gotta wrap this up, but thank you guys.
Muchas gracias por la conversación que tuvieron con nosotros. Antes de que termine, yo tengo una pregunta. Me dijiste, $10,000 es lo que les...
Eso que cobran acá.
Un coyote les dijo, yo te cruzo, $10,000 por Los Ángeles. So $10,000 is what the going rate that the coyotes are asking to deliver them physically to Los Angeles. $10,000 para ustedes.
Lo más que
¿Dónde?
$10,000 de dónde acá.
$10,000, like from where?
Y si lo
When you say $10,000,
tuviera, no me pondría a trabajar acá.
If they had the $10,000, they would just set up a business here and work here.
Yo pongo mi negocio ya.
Primero se hace algo también.
Y les dicen, oye, en pagos, o sea, suéltalo.
does $10,000 get you a private? Does it get you like a private?
$10,000 se los van a llevar en carro
Or is
ustedes.
that in a caravan?
Pues no sé, o sea,
O cruzar la frontera o brincársela. This is $10,000 to jump the border.
To walk?
To walk.
Why do you need a coyote?
es mucho,
¿Por qué ocupan un permiso para hacer eso? No lo hacen ustedes solos.
porque el problema de nosotros es, mire, nosotros podemos cruzar.
The problem is that they can cross.
Cruzan, luego está la migración del otro lado.
As soon as they cross, either the border patrol catches them.
Y mientras que el que lo va a cruzar, ellos ya saben cómo está encima de ellos.
And the coyote knows how everything works, including some of the people in the border patrol. So they can get it.
Por eso
That's how it's so expensive. Because part of that money goes to
o sea, por eso cobran eso,
especially the
porque
border protection.
So that's part of that money is paying off border patrol.
That is
They're not
like the thing.
enforcing the border.
ellos por eso cobran eso, porque es el trabajo de ellos.
That's why they
Our
charge
border
that.
patrol, U.S. border patrol.
There's no border patrol man.
Sí, no, nosotros ahí no es fácil hablar.
It's not easy just doing it by yourself.
En la mañana era mucho sereno. No es lo mismo estar arropado en una
La
camioneta.
neta pasamos hambre, frío, cuando llueve nos mojamos.
Ahorita con lo que he estado haciendo en Tijuana, they get wet, their camping gets thrown away, so they've been
Escapado.
So was it, did they say it's, is it a private
No.
If they are, it's a caravan. One last question: do they think it's worth the $10,000 to
¿Ustedes creen
cross
que
the border?
ustedes creen que si ustedes tuvieron $10,000 vale la pena para pagar para que estén en Los Ángeles mañana?
Habría que ver también para ver qué tipo de personas.
Sí.
No se puede confiar en nadie.
Yeah, he says they don't trust anybody, and realistically, if they had that money, they wouldn't trust that money.
Es mucho dinero para
It's a lot of money to trust somebody.
Y de eso tenemos que pagarlos y nosotros...
¿Y ustedes han escuchado de estafas, las estafas que les hacen?
Sí.
Que los dejan aquí en la Costco o que los matan? He says that it's common for people to be scammed out of their money or killed.
Confiaría un dinero yo así, pero con una persona que yo mire, que ya
tuvo un éxito con alguien que conoce. He says he would trust that with somebody, and sometimes it happens where people are like, hey, I'm on the other side, I paid this guy, he's successful, so let's pay him. That's the only way they would do it.
Okay.
No, y gracias a Dios nosotros
So they need to be vouched for.
Nosotros acá pues den cuenta que hay muchos que dicen lo llevan haciendo trabajo por tanto y luego lo secuestran y a extorsionar a la familia.
A lot of them pay their $10,000, let's say, then they get abducted, and then the families basically get taxed. La familia americana, la familia que ya está en Estados Unidos les toca que, hey, la tenemos, and if not, they'll kill them.
Nosotros ahorita aquí en el campamento, para empezar,
like in the camp.
Con yo pago 15 pesos.
Yes. He pays 15 pesos to be able to charge his phone in the camp.
No tenemos light. No tenemos luz, no tenemos nada. Entonces lo que hacemos es que buscamos ahí, conectamos acá y cuando ya está, digamos, así como está aquí, entonces yo cargo mis teléfonos de esta manera acá.
This is how he makes a living, so this is the only thing he has.
He charges.
Para poder tener información.
So he can at least be communicated with his wife and just have information. That's all he has. It's basically, it says that's his house.
Así como logramos a tener el día.
That's the only way he has.
No hay información.
And if not, there's no information.
Y también hay que estar recargando 50 pesos.
50 pesos on the phone, so it's like it's spending money, basically trying to be there waiting for
para poder tener alguna ayuda para los soldados que le caigan información a nosotros.
So you can have some sort of help through social media, somebody coming in making donations to help.
Thank you.
Gracias.
What was the most dangerous part of the trip?
¿Cuál fue lo más peligroso del viaje para ustedes?
Los secuestros.
Los secuestros, being abducted on the way, people on the way to get abducted.
Ciudad de México, a mí me secuestraron, no a mí, un grupo como de 10, porque como los pedíamos right.
A group of 10 of them were abducted in Ciudad de México that he was a part of.
Why were you abducted?
Llegó un señor y veníamos a Ciudad de México, dice, ¿a dónde van? ¿De dónde son?
The man got there and said, like, where are you from? Like, where are you here?
Centroamérica, ¿traen algo para el gas? ¿No traen dinero?
Do you have any money?
Traemos dinero, señor, pero traen algo para el gas, entonces yo les doy el rayo y les llevo hasta donde van. Y que como veníamos así, les íbamos a sentar a la mera al estadio Azteca de México. Ahí nos iban a recibir.
They were supposed to go to sleep in a stadium, but they got taken somewhere else.
So they got caught.
Y ya
And this is in
Mexico City.
un grupo con
7,000. Sí, hubo un grupo que se llamaba Pueblos Sin Fronteras.
There was a group called Towns Without Borders.
Que los apoyó a enseñarles el camino.
That they showed them the way as far as how to get to the border. Okay. That's the group that the organizing element as far as some of the first caravan.
Sí, no,
En Culiacán fue lo peor, dice que ahí sí los
Culiacán
llegaron.
Pasó que llegaron que los estamos reuniendo todos hacia afuera.
In Culiacán, they saw that they were trying to settle there, and I mean, the cartel showed up and said, "You can't sleep here. Move along," basically.
Wow. Why do you think the cartel didn't want them
Porque el cartel no los quería ir. La atención que iba a llamarnos, que la prensa que llegara.
A lo mejor eso que los daña ahí. Pero la verdad las cosas, nosotros no sabíamos nada, nosotros lo que dijimos que ya estábamos descansando y solo estuvimos...
They didn't want to do anything, they just wanted to rest.
But when the cartel came,
How many of them were there? How many of them were there? How was the
¿Cómo
presentation?
sabías que eran malandros? ¿Salieron con...?
No, de repente llegó un compa y dice,
He said that.
una hora nomás dice, no, dice, a levantarlos los van a dar unos camiones para meter no sé a dónde, porque no los quieren ver acá.
Okay, so he said that a single individual showed up with a warning to move along, that they didn't want them there. And when they say they didn't want them there, I mean the owners of Culiacán.
Okay.
O sea, el gobernador de ahí dijo, no, pues le mandaron que no querían ver esa gente acá y que vieran qué hacían con nosotros y que los mandaron unos camiones para mandarlos a otros.
The governor sent them aid to get them out. The governor of Sinaloa.
Oh, so there was no question if it was a legit threat.
Y ahí veníamos, hasta nos llevaron no sé a dónde, y ahí veníamos cuando venimos a Mexicali. De ahí en Mexicali caminando todas las rumorosas con grupos de 10.
So the bus dropped them off on the border of Baja, and they just walked from Mexicali all the way here, which is
el sentamiento hasta
La Rumorosa. ¿Se subió la Rumorosa a pie?
Todo.
So the Rumorosa is like a,
oh, mucho frío.
like a
Otra ahí
Death Valley level desert.
Donde los íbamos a juntar todos nosotros en la cancha deportiva Benito Juárez, ahí todos. Bueno, ahí caímos como unos 10,000.
He said about 10,000 people showed up at the cancha deportiva Benito Juárez. Es la que está acá en la frontera. The first encampment. It's like 10,000 people showed up to that one. ¿Y a usted le tocó cuando levantaron a los migrantes aquí? La primera.
A mí me tocó a la 1:30 a pura punta de pistola la Guardia Nacional. Vámonos.
Oh, he says that one in the morning, he said the National Guard units showed up to the first encampment and said,
estamos adentro, pero adentro dijeron que no lo querían ver porque pues una gente estuvo yendo, se llamaba cuando nos vinieron para el Barretal. Y luego mucha gente, pues yo la verdad no quería ir porque digo, yo no ocupo el albergue, quiero ir a trabajar con alguien, pero no conocía a nadie, pues de repente llegó un señor y me apoyó. Entonces, pero el señor ya como era muy tarde, me tocó que irme para él. Dice uno, tú te vas a ir porque cuando estábamos adentro nos sacaron de adentro, pero toda la gente se apoyó en las calles, las carpitas y todo. Pero mandaron un comunicado, yo como yo soy cocinero, soy chef en comidas chinas, todo eso.
He's a chef and getting Chinese food and everything like that, so like he said, so he wanted work. They wanted to put him in an encampment, but he wanted to work. You can't be in a camp and work at the same time.
Oh,
mi amigo dice, ayúdame a hacer tamales para darte una feria, ok, está bien. El día que fue,
start making tamales and basic events and
el
stuff.
día que fui a hacer el trabajo yo, otro día ya miré que todo el mundo estaba afuera, entonces me
As
tocó
soon as
ir afuera.
he came back to work, he saw the encampment got moved. So it's like,
O sea, salimos de la cancha y los apoyamos afuera, pero ya después mandaron un comunicado, yo no me daba cuenta. A las 1 de la mañana, vámonos todos.
1 in the morning, they all got kicked out. So basically, if you're in the camp, you can't work.
Yeah.
Y no les dejaron sacar nada, vámonos.
They didn't let them take anything. They fucking go.
At this point in time, we have completely wrapped up the interview. We paid the migrants, loaded them up into an indigenous car, a separate car from me, Tim, and Ed. We didn't want to burn them or compromise them, meaning we didn't want any of the other migrants at the camp to recognize the fact that they had left with 2 Americans and Ed Calderon for an interview. So we put them in an indigenous car, sent them back into the migrant camp so that they could reintegrate safely.
Around
20,000 per kilo?
Yeah, here. It changes depending on where you are, but 20,000 per kilo is what the going rate is.
What's like a gram, one bag?
Un gramo.
¿Gramo cuánto vale?
Uh-huh.
Como $20, ¿no?
It's like 25 bucks.
Oh, okay.
And that's it, pero aquí que la mayoría es coca, cristal, pastilla,
El fentanilo.
fentanyl,
Mm.
in pill form, cocaine, fentanyl, meth.
Ya el mercado de la marihuana ya cambió.
Yeah, pot market is completely changed now with legal California weed. It's better in California, basically. El contrabando es al revés, ¿no?
Sí.
Now the weed contraband is from the U.S. to.
Me voy derecho y los bajo de aquel
No
lado.
shit.
No,
What's
era
that?
acá.
What is that?
There's a millet. What?
That big wall.
Oh, that's the border wall.
That's the border wall?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's that big.
Aquí,
Right here.
aquí estamos en la línea, como quédense ahí entre las callecitas, ¿no?
Ajá. Esperen.
Ahí pónganse entre las callecitas donde estaban. Los
We're
espero
outside the
aquí.
migrant camp.
Los espero aquí. Ok.
So right now we're heading into the migrant camp. Just had a coffee with those people, got a lot of good information out of them.
So this is an interesting spot. So before going to the camp. This is where deported U.S. veterans meet up. You name it, what branch? These are a bunch of the people that basically didn't make it with their immigration process or got pulled back.
Oh, I've heard about, I think Luis was talking about this.
Yeah.
Oh shit, it's right here.
We got threatened with rocks as far as being pelted with rocks if we filmed any of the kids.
Yeah, we're gonna get.
That is what
They're
they said.
persuading us to leave.
They're persuading us to leave. They said they would throw rocks at us if we filmed any of the kids.
So, just tell us when you want to shut.
Yeah, fine. We're just gonna stand here next to the cop car. Throw rocks at that. I think it's a pretty good one. Eso! Tremenda, eh? So this is in Chaparral migrant camp. This camp has been here since the very start, the very first migrant caravan that made it all the way to Tijuana, set up here. They have been multiple times trying to get these people out, and the camp has only grown. It used to be centered right over there where the the pedestrian entry is, the Ped West entry was. And now it's basically taking over this whole site. They put in fencing. You can see the sign there. It's prohibited to enter in here with guns, explosives, alcohol, and or drugs. Funny enough, this is the richest heroin market right now. I mean, if you want to score heroin around here, this is where you come. Right? It is basically being utilized as a as a front for other things as well. People here, they have what they have. They live off donations. A lot of them they live off the generosity of people. And the police, that cop car here, and the security that's provided to these people is security for them from the locals, because the locals do not take kindly to their presence here.
This pretty much wraps up the interview and the video. So now I'm just going to kind of go over some things that I didn't really have a place to discuss earlier. One thing that we did see earlier when we were conducting surveillance for our insertion route into the migrant camp was we saw 3 or 4 gentlemen with suits on the opposite end of the migrant camp, which obviously they stuck out like a sore thumb being in suits. And come to find out, exactly 1 week after we entered the migrant camp, they bulldozed the entire migrant camp down. From what I've been told, the migrants were given 24 hours to vacate the premises, and at that point in time, they had bulldozers on standby along with a lot of national police, and they bulldozed what was left of the migrant camp, and it is no longer there, which I am certain that that's what those 3 or 4 suits on the opposite end of the migrant camp were doing. And that leaves me with my opinion. I'm going to be honest, I went down there expecting to see something completely different, and that's what I was intending to bring you all with this trip, and especially this portion of the trip in the migrant camp. And what I found was completely different. I saw 2 people desperate just to work, desperate leaving where they came from. You heard me, I asked them, would you rather stay at this migrant camp not knowing when you would be able to enter the United States, or go back to your home in Honduras, excuse me. Remember, they're living under a tarp. The man was thankful to create a business charging people's cell phones with an external battery pack for $1. That's a hell of a lot more than I can say for a lot of Americans that are sitting here living off the system, complaining that they can't find work, that they're being suppressed, all this other nonsense. And then you see that. I would trade them out for so many Americans, it's not even funny. And they're trying to do it the right way. So I'm going to be honest, my opinion has completely changed. They have been trying to get into the United States the legal way and go through the process the legal way for several years now, and still nothing. And so I think that we need to fix that program and we need to speed up that immigration process. I do think that we need to lock the borders down because I know not everybody is like them. I don't know how many people aren't like them. I know there's a lot of bad stuff coming over this border and it does need to be shut down, but we need to streamline the immigration process with whether it's the background checks or whatever the process may be, because where are we right now in this country? We can't find anybody to work. And you go over the border and you have people living under a tarp willing to work for $1 just to charge cell phones, and they're thankful for it, and they would rather do that than go back to their home country. I think Americans have become extremely lazy and self-entitled, and we could use some people like that to work in this country, because obviously nobody else wants to. In conclusion, I just want to say thank you to Ed Calderon and his team. None of the stuff that happened on this trip will be possible without him. I want to say thank you to all of my patrons who are on Patreon, because without your support, this trip never would have happened. So if you want to see more of this, and I will go to another section of the border, I'm not going to say exactly where that is, but if I do receive the support on Patreon, then I will pick another part of the United States-Mexico border. I'll travel there and I'll see what's going on, and then I'll reveal the location once I get back. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.